Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new study. Well, sort of, I guess. We're picking up in 2 Kings today, which is just a continuation of 1 Kings. So if you are new here and you don't know what we do, we try to do a 5-minute Bible study every single day. We've already done the first book of Kings, and all the outline PDFs and all the information, the videos is out online if you want to play a little bit of catch up. But we also create new outlines every day that you can download for free on our website along with these videos, and you're going to see the PDF up on the screen, and you can go out and download it if you want it for your own study or to study with somebody else. So we go through the key questions of each chapter: who, what, when, where, why, an outline of the text, and then we talk about an application for our daily lives. So if you're interested in this, subscribe to the channel and come along with us for our daily Bible study. Let's talk about 2 Kings chapter 1. The first thing we always do is try to place these events historically. When did they happen on a timeline? The timeline that we've been using places the division of the kingdom of Israel at about 975 BC. Under kings like David and Solomon, the kingdom of Israel used to be divided, but then they split. A kingdom in the north known as Israel, they had their own kings, their own sets of kings, and then a kingdom in the south known as Judah, and they had their own kings. That split happened about 975 BC, roughly. Now, we're about 80 to 100 years after that now. The reign of Ahab and Ahaziah in Israel, in the north, that probably falls within the window of about 920 BC to 890 BC. And that puts us about 900 years before Jesus is born. Our second section is always our major characters. Who are the key historical characters that play a role in this chapter? First of all, we have Elijah. You may know about him. He was a prophet of God. God used Elijah to condemn King Ahaziah of Israel because of his devotion to idols and to false gods, when his devotion should have been given to the true God of Israel. Now, Ahaziah is our second major character. As I mentioned, he's the king of Israel, the northern territory, and he was the son of Ahab, who was the very wicked king who came before him. Every chapter we have a map. It helps us to point out the key locations and to put the whole story together in a more comprehensive way. In this chapter, we're going to highlight just 2 locations. The first one is Samaria. Ahaziah is injured in the city of Samaria, which was kind of the capital of the northern kingdom, and he became sick there. The other city that we're going to point out is Ekron, which is one of the traditional Philistine cities. Ahaziah consults a false god who was from Ekron. This false god's name was Baal-zebub. All right, now we can go over to page number 2, where we have an outline. We try to break the chapter down into its key sections and themes. Today, our first 6 verses, we're going to talk about Ahaziah becoming injured and seeking counsel from this false idol Baal-zebub and how God responds to that. So Ahaziah, the king of Israel, he was in Samaria, and he fell through the upper chamber of his house and he became injured. Rather than recovering quickly from that injury, he actually fell sick and he feared that he was going to die. So what he did was he knew about this false god over in Ekron. Evidently, he was somehow devoted or connected to this, and he sent messengers to this false idol and to the prophets or priests, whoever worked at the location where this god was based. And he sent these messengers to Baal-zebub to inquire of him whether or not he would recover from his injury. Well, what do you think God thought of this situation? The God who had made Israel into a nation in the first place. Probably not going to be too happy, right? You would have guessed right. The angel of the Lord appeared to God's prophet Elijah, and he told him to intercept the king's messengers as they were on their way to Ekron. Elijah was supposed to tell them to return to their king and to tell Ahaziah that he was going to die from his sickness because he chose to put his trust in an idol rather than in the God of Israel. So the king's servants returned and they delivered that message. And that's the end of section number 1. Section number 2 and the final section of this chapter, verses 7 through 18, Elijah calls down fire from heaven and kills Ahaziah's servants. This is quite an interesting section. Ahaziah inquired of his messengers who Elijah had talked to what the man of God looked like that had told him that he was going to die. Evidently, Elijah didn't give them his name. So he says, what this guy looked like. And when his servants told him that he wore a, quote, garment of hair with a belt of leather, Ahaziah knew for sure that it was actually Elijah. So the king sent a captain and a band of 50 men to arrest Elijah because he wasn't too happy about the message that he sent to him. Elijah was sitting on the top of a hill. The text tells us that Elijah, when these men approached him to arrest him, Elijah called down fire from heaven and it, quote, consumed the band of soldiers. Right? Quite incredible. Ahaziah then sent another captain and another 50 men to arrest Elijah. Guess what happened to them? The exact same thing. When a third captain was sent, though, he was smart enough to do things a little bit differently. He fell at Elijah's feet and he pled for mercy. And at this, the angel of the Lord told Elijah to return with this captain to Ahaziah and to speak with him directly. And Elijah pretty much repeated the same message. He told Ahaziah that he was not going to recover from his injury and his sickness because he had put his hope in false idols. And it turned out to be exactly as Elijah said. Ahaziah died and he was replaced by a guy named Jehoram, also known as Joram. Now, as we do in every study, we try to finish up with an application. What can we take away from these verses, these themes and ideas? How can we apply this stuff into our life to be pleasing to God ourselves? So here's the application for today. It's very displeasing to God when we give the devotion that belongs to Him to something else. Ahaziah was really a fool for giving his devotion, putting his trust in this false god Baal-zebub instead of the God of Israel that had been with his fathers, that had blessed his nation, that had put him on the throne. Now, do you think God is the same as he was in the days of Ahaziah? Do you think he cares about who or what we give our devotion to? Of course he does. And I think that's especially true now that he gave us his son. Jesus came and died for us, and now more than ever we owe our devotion to God. So the question that we should ask ourselves is, where is our attention and devotion going? Is there anything that drains our attention and our affection away from God? God is very serious about us putting our trust in Him and in no one else. So that's the application for today. That is 2 Kings chapter 1. I hope you'll join us as we go through the entire book, Lord willing, and our goal is to go through the entire Bible.